People don't usually admit this, but there is a quiet, almost forbidden way of treating a woman that awakens something deep and instinctive inside her. It's not about fake romance or modern speeches. It's about the rare energy of a man who doesn't beg, doesn't crumble, and doesn't live his life around her. This calm, confident, self-reliant presence is what stays in a woman's mind long after he is gone. No one admits it, but this is how many women secretly want to be treated. Not like fairy tale princesses and not like untouchable modern heroines, but as people who feel drawn to a strong masculine presence they cannot completely control. A man who doesn't beg, who doesn't explain himself all the time, who doesn't bend just to please. Because most men today are anxious, fragile, predictable, and when someone different appears, it affects them deeply, even if they never say it out loud. They can repeat modern ideas, say they want sensitivity and emotional softness, and yes, sometimes they do. But deep inside, there is also a response to something else, to the man who doesn't shake, who doesn't plead, who doesn't constantly ask for attention and approval, to the man who is simply comfortable being himself. This is what nobody tells you. A woman keeps thinking about the man she could not fully understand, the man who didn't hand over his entire world right away, the man who didn't chase after her every time she pulled away or tested him. The more predictable you are, the easier you are to forget, because boredom kills attraction, and boring men become just another repeated story. Nobody likes to admit this, because it would mean accepting that desire does not always follow modern emotional rules. Desire is messy, irrational, and honest. It does not obey social expectations. It simply exists. And the truth is, many women feel drawn to a man who behaves as if he doesn't need her to survive. Not because he is cold, but because he already has his own life and identity. Whatever she cannot fully control becomes fascinating. She wants to understand it. She wants to win it. She becomes curious, even obsessed. Not because of manipulation, but because attraction often works that way. She doesn't just want to be chosen. She also wants to feel like she is choosing and earning a man of real value. The world has trained men to behave like good boys, to ask permission just to exist, to lower their heads so they don't seem too much, to walk carefully so they don't get judged or cancelled. Meanwhile, many women get quietly tired of this. They won't admit it because social masks are comfortable, but inside they feel frustrated. They become distant, cold, emotionally unavailable. It's not a lack of love, it's a lack of impact. Impact happens when a man doesn't give away his soul for free, when he doesn't reply instantly, when he doesn't open his heart after 30 minutes of conversation, when he doesn't make a woman the main mission of his life, when he lives his own life and lets her see if she fits into it. That's the real secret. A woman respects a man who has his own world. At first, she might complain, feel irritated, or even resist it, but deep down, she respects it. And in the female mind, respect is the seed that grows into desire. Everything else is just decoration. Here's what nobody says out loud. A woman is drawn to the man who creates an inner conflict in her, the one who makes her wonder, why doesn't he treat me like the others? Why isn't he desperate for me? Why does he seem so calm and unaffected? These questions are like a slow poison, but also like an addiction. The more she tries to answer them, the more attached she becomes, because the answer never fully comes. The man she can't understand is the man she remembers, the man she dreams about, the man she silently compares everyone else to, and everyone else loses. But here's the mistake most men make. They think being this kind of man means being rude, arrogant, or cold. It doesn't. It's much subtler. It's psychological. It's energetic. It's not harsh words. It's silence that carries weight. Not shouting, but calm that unsettles. Not cruelty, but intentional distance. It's the look that says, I see you, but I don't need you. That look makes a woman question everything she believed about herself. Because deep down, every woman wants to be chosen, but chosen by a man who doesn't need to choose anyone. And nobody admits this, because admitting it reveals that female desire, beneath all social layers, works like a subtle psychological game, a quiet game. And the man who understands this game stops suffering, stops chasing blindly, and stops begging for space where there is none. He becomes the man she notices, not the one she ignores. The man she imagines, not the one she forgets. The man she tries to figure out, not the one she controls. Because in the end, her mind only relaxes when she meets a man who could lose her, but isn't afraid of that possibility. And that kind of inner confidence is irresistible. She doesn't want to be treated like a fragile queen. She wants to feel like she has to earn a place in the life of a man who doesn't give himself away cheaply. That's what moves her. That's what makes her think, rethink, return, insist, and feel. The same woman who would never say this out loud is often the one who loses sleep over a man who never kneels emotionally in front of her. This is the beginning of the truth nobody talks about. The part that breaks all the modern fairy tale ideas about romance. The part that reveals what really happens inside her mind when she meets a man who doesn't need her, but still desires her. What nobody admits is this: women don't always want instant emotional clarity. They want space. They want a little uncertainty. They want the pause between one message and the next. The gap that makes them wonder if you're thinking about them. They want to feel like they could lose you, because that's what activates their emotions. When a man replies instantly, shares too much too soon, and gives all his interest with no boundaries, her mind often labels that energy as predictable. And for many women, predictable equals disposable. It's not cruelty, it's instinct. What requires no effort creates no value. What creates no tension cannot sustain desire. She wants to feel she won you, not that you were always there, endlessly available, like a tap pouring unlimited attention even when she does nothing. And every woman knows this, even if she says she loves caring, attentive men. She does, until they become too predictable. Then the shine fades, the curiosity disappears, the attraction quietly dies, and she starts inventing excuses. It's not you, it's me, I'm in a complicated phase. I'm not ready for something serious. All just ways of hiding the real truth. You became emotionally obvious, and obviousness kills fascination. Obviousness is the death of desire, because the female mind lives in duality. She wants security, but also risk. She wants stability, but also unpredictability. She wants affection, but also intensity. She loves compliments, but only when they don't feel cheap or thrown around carelessly. She wants to feel desired, but she also wants to feel like she earned that desire. These contradictions confuse men who think in a straight line, but in her emotional world, they make perfect sense. A woman is drawn to a man who can move between these two sides without losing himself. A man who isn't cold, but doesn't melt either. Who isn't distant, but doesn't live on his knees. A man who knows when to appear and when to step back. And this is the power nobody teaches you. Strategic absence is worth more than 1,000 love speeches. When you disappear for a while, not as a game, but because you're honestly busy living your life, you create space for her to feel, to imagine, to wonder about you, to question why you're not there like all the other men who chase her. That space creates energy. Energy creates attraction. Attraction creates desire. So when you return, she looks at you differently, because she realizes she doesn't own you. A woman values a man who doesn't belong fully to her. And the most ironic part, you don't have to fake anything. You just have to truly live your life. Men with goals, focus, and purpose naturally seem more attractive because they don't have time for empty flattery. They don't shape themselves to please everyone. They don't beg to be loved, and that confidence feels magnetic. Women are drawn to men who carry quiet self-assurance, not arrogance, but emotional strength. A man who doesn't fall apart when she tests his limits. A man who stays centered even when she tries to provoke a reaction. Because almost every woman tests, not out of cruelty, but to understand what kind of man you really are. If you panic, you lose. If you get confused, you lose. If you give everything away instantly, you lose. But when you stay grounded, even through silence, delays, emotional swings, she becomes curious. Because she has finally met someone different. And anything that breaks the pattern instantly gains value. The man who keeps his composure, even when she tries to shake him, is the man she never forgets. He's the one she talks about with her friend weeks later. The one she compares to future partners. The one who becomes a quiet reference in her mind, even if the story was brief. He leaves a mark because he cannot be easily controlled. This is the secret nobody likes to admit. A woman only truly values what she believes she could lose. If you give yourself completely with no boundaries, you remove the natural tension that pulls her toward you. Her mind works in emotional cycles. She needs to feel there is something to win, something to understand, something still alive between you. Female desire, deep down, is a mystery. And when a man reveals everything instantly, the mystery dies. And without mystery, nothing grows. There's another truth nobody talks about. Women are attracted more to psychological strength than physical strength. Physical strength impresses for a few seconds. Money might impress for a few days. But psychological power leaves an impact for years. It's the power of a man who stays calm through emotional storms, who doesn't need to prove himself to anyone, who knows his own value, and doesn't abandon that sense of self even when he falls in love. This kind of presence connects deeply with the female mind because it awakens something ancient inside her. The need to feel emotionally safe beside someone strong. And emotional strength doesn't mean being cold or rigid. It means having the inner control to stay centered even when everything around you tries to pull you off balance. That creates an aura, a quiet sense of authority, that women may never admit openly but always recognize. It's the kind of energy that makes her fix her hair when you enter the room, that makes her search for you with her eyes while pretending not to notice you. It changes how she feels, behaves, and reacts, all because you didn't fall into the common modern trap, the desperate need for approval. Approval is the poison. It makes you emotionally cheap. When you beg to be approved, you send the message that you see yourself beneath her, and a woman rarely desires what she feels she completely controls. She may like you, she may care about you, she may think you're sweet, but desire, that needs something more, and desire is what truly drives everything. That's why no one tells you this. If men understood how strongly women are drawn to a man who lives for himself, not for them, the entire romantic script society teaches would fall apart. Because being kind alone is not what creates attraction, confidence, self-respect, and presence do. Female desire doesn't follow the logic of what is right. It follows the logic of what feels strong. What nobody admits is this: women, above all, want to feel something. It doesn't matter how much they try to explain it logically or fit their feelings into modern theories and ideas. Deep inside, the female mind responds to emotional impact, not logic. And emotional impact only comes from a man who is not afraid to be different. Different from the crowd of desperate men. Different from those who act like emotional policemen, begging for attention as if every interaction is a precious crumb. That kind of needy energy pushes a woman away, because what she truly wants is someone steady, someone who doesn't break, who doesn't beg, who doesn't collapse when things get difficult. And this doesn't mean being rude, it means inner strength, it means emotional stability, it means not chasing her just because she pulled away, not panicking when she goes silent, not over-explaining yourself just to seem nice. A woman doesn't fall in love with the good boy who tries to prove his worth. She falls for the man who doesn't need to prove anything. The man who lives his own life, who doesn't place her at the center of everything, who doesn't fall apart when she, sometimes unconsciously, tests him emotionally. This man isn't just desired, he starts living in her mind, in a way she would never admit out loud. And yes, almost every woman tests, not out of cruelty, but because it's in her nature to understand your limits. She wants to see whether you lose control easily, how you react when she pulls back, ignores you for a while, or changes her tone. If you panic, she realizes you're like everyone else, predictable. But if you stay calm, keep your composure, and keep your own life as a priority, something shifts inside her. She feels your strength, and that strength is irresistible. The man who remains steady is the man she begins to respect, and for a woman, respect is the fuel of desire. There is no real desire without respect. You will never see a woman deeply attracted to someone she sees as emotionally weak. She may stay out of convenience, but true desire doesn't grow in weak soil. Desire grows where there is firmness, quiet firmness, not aggression, inner strength, not arrogance. And here's the subtle truth. The less you try to convince her, the more she believes in you. The less you try to impress her, the more she starts paying attention. The less you give yourself away for free, the more she wants to discover you. Women are driven by emotional curiosity. She wants to know what exists inside you that you don't immediately reveal. She wants to understand why your energy feels different from other men. And when she realizes that you're not trying to convince her of anything, she slowly starts convincing herself. And nothing is more powerful than that. When someone builds their own story about you, their imagination is far stronger than anything you could say. That's why a quiet man is often more intriguing than the one who talks non-stop. Silence creates space, and that space allows her imagination to work, and her mind never stops there. But if you talk too much, reveal too much, give yourself away too easily, you kill the mystery, you kill the magnetism. It's like opening a book and showing the last chapter on the first page. No mystery, no tension, no fascination. But when you reveal just enough, when you stay calm and centered, she starts filling the silence with thoughts and questions, and that's when she becomes emotionally invested. Here's the truth. Nobody says, a woman desires the man who doesn't kneel emotionally in front of her, because deep down that signals inner strength. If he remains grounded, he must have something solid inside him. If he doesn't panic when she pulls away, it shows he doesn't depend on her completely. If he doesn't constantly try to please, it means he understands his own value. And that is incredibly attractive. No woman truly desires a man who idolizes her. Idolization suffocates desire. It makes the relationship childish. It turns a man into something she controls, and anything fully controlled becomes boring. Women want to be desired, but not worshipped to the point that all challenge disappears. When a man shows he would do anything for her, he becomes emotionally cheap, and anything cheap loses value. It's harsh, but it's the psychological truth behind attraction. Perceived value rises with rarity. If you give yourself away too easily, you become a prize that requires no effort, and effortless prizes don't leave a mark. That's why the man who focuses on himself, lives with purpose, doesn't try to please everyone, knows when to say no, and doesn't fill every silence with explanations, becomes unforgettable. Not because he plays games, but because he carries emotional value. He is not for sale cheaply. He doesn't trade dignity for validation, he doesn't bargain for affection. And this creates something deep inside her. She starts to miss you. Misses knowing what you're thinking. Misses knowing where you are. Misses the fact that you don't always text first. She starts to miss something simple. She doesn't know whether you care as much as she wishes you did. And that uncertainty is where silent obsession begins. Not because of what you do, but because of what you don't do. Obsession grows in the empty spaces you leave. It grows in uncertainty, the only real fuel for female desire. Nobody admits this. Everyone hides behind romantic speeches and ideals. But here, we're exposing what happens behind the social mask. A woman desires the man who is not emotionally available all the time. The man she has to win, the man she has to figure out, the man whose presence feels strong and whose absence she can't ignore. Deep down, that's what many women want, even if they never say it. There is always a silent moment when a woman decides that you're no longer special, you're just another guy. And that moment happens right when your world starts revolving around her. When your mood, your life, your identity start depending on her attention. When you hand her the keys to your self-worth, that's the moment everything shifts. A woman loses interest the instant she realizes you need her to exist emotionally. She'll never say it out loud, but her mind labels that dependence as weakness. And weakness, as harsh as it sounds, does not create desire. Women like kind, caring men, but only when those men also have their own lives. Affection loses value when it's the only thing you offer. Kindness loses strength when it's fueled by fear. Constant presence becomes suffocating when there's never any space or distance. And this psychological truth is simple. The more you're always there, the less she misses you. The less she misses you, the less she thinks of you. And the less she thinks of you, the more predictable you become. Predictability slowly poisons attraction. That's why she feels more alive with a man who is not always available. A man who can calmly say, "I can't right now," without guilt, without fear, without excuses. A man with boundaries. A man whose life doesn't place her at the center. He doesn't need to be aggressive. He just needs to be grounded. He has a world that doesn't revolve around her. A woman doesn't want to be the sun of your life. She wants to feel that you are the sun of your own life, and she gets to orbit around that strength. It sounds harsh, but it's true. Most men fail because they place the woman above themselves. And when you do that, you automatically lose value in her eyes. A woman desires the man who puts himself first, not because he is selfish, but because he is solid. He knows who he is. He knows what he wants. He doesn't abandon himself to win someone. He doesn't destroy his world to fit into hers. He keeps his roots deep, and that strength is magnetic. And that's where the truly Machiavellian part begins. A woman respects the man who is willing to lose her. She respects him because she sees he doesn't bend. She respects him because she realizes he doesn't lower his standards. She respects him because he is not afraid of emptiness. And the man who does not fear emptiness is the man who holds the real power in any relationship. Women, even silently, are drawn to this kind of strength. Not the strength that controls, but the strength that doesn't collapse. But the world taught men the opposite. It taught you to be too nice, too understanding, too emotionally open, too available. It taught you that if she feels even a little uncomfortable, you must rush to fix it. It taught you that you must constantly prove your value, your worth, your intentions. And ironically, the more you try to prove yourself, the less she believes you. Because the truth is simple. Value that needs to be explained loses its impact. Value that needs to be justified feels forced, and anything forced loses its natural magnetism. A man who truly has value never tries to convince anyone. He simply is. He acts according to what he believes. He moves with firmness. He doesn't change himself just to please. He doesn't apologize for existing. He doesn't reshape himself around emotional chaos. He keeps his composure, even when she tries to shake it. And that is exactly what spins inside her mind. No one admits this openly, but a woman wants to be emotionally guided, not controlled, not suffocated. Guided. She wants to feel she's beside someone who knows where he's going. Someone who doesn't fall apart at the first challenge. Someone whose energy is so steady that she can relax around him because she knows he won't crumble. Even the most independent women carry this silent desire to be with a man who brings emotional stability, not financial stability, emotional stability. A man who is in control of himself, not of her. And this control isn't proven with words. It's proven through reactions. The feminine world is guided by subtext. She doesn't care as much about what you say. She cares about what you show without speaking. If she provokes you and you react emotionally, she reads insecurity. If she pulls away and you panic, she reads dependence. If she tests you and you break, she reads weakness. It's not logical, it's instinct. And here's the part nobody says out loud. A woman wants to feel that the man will continue living, growing, and moving forward, even if she disappears. The man who gives off that quiet certainty, even without trying, becomes irresistible. Because he carries a kind of confidence that cannot be faked, and real confidence is the most attractive force there is. And one last hidden truth. A woman respects silence more than explanations. When you explain too much, justify too much, or open up too much, she reads it as anxiety. And to the female mind, emotional anxiety means one thing: you're not ready. But calm silence, steady silence, confident silence says everything without saying a word. It says you're not afraid to lose her. It says you're not trying to convince anyone. It says you know your own value. And that value doesn't need to impress the world. It just needs to be real to you. When you truly believe in yourself, she feels it. Masculine self-respect has an energy that's impossible to ignore. It fills the room, it takes up space, and she notices it from a distance. It's the same energy that makes her think about you hours later, even when she's busy. That makes her check her phone for no reason. That makes her picture you with someone else. And that unlocks something deep inside her, something unspoken but always felt. Because here's the truth, a woman desires what she fears losing. If you give yourself completely, there's nothing to lose. If your world revolves around her, there's nothing to lose. If you beg, there's nothing to lose. But when you show that your life continues with or without her, fear appears. And in feminine nature, the fear of loss is one of the strongest engines of desire. Nobody talks about this, but it's there, silently. A woman only opens herself emotionally when she sees a man who doesn't kneel for her. No matter how modern ideas try to deny this instinct, the dynamic remains. She may like you, admire you, care for you, but she only surrenders fully when she sees a man who stays whole even at the risk of losing her. That disarms her. It unsettles her. It pulls her in. Why? Because when a man shows that his life doesn't depend on her, he awakens a quiet emotional competitiveness inside her. I want to be chosen, but I want to be chosen by a man who doesn't choose easily. That is the paradox of female desire. She wants to win the man who doesn't need to be won. She wants the man who isn't begging for attention. She wants the kind of man whose value is so naturally high that even the smallest bit of attention from him feels like gold. And the most ironic part? You don't have to fake any of this, because pretending is always obvious. Forced behavior always looks desperate. What truly captures a woman's mind is the authenticity of who you really are. When you're genuinely focused on yourself, your path, your goals, your life, without making her the center of your universe, she feels it. She senses something different about you. And in her mind, anything different is both dangerous and incredibly attractive. Here's the truth. Nobody admits. A woman doesn't want a man who lives for her. She wants a man who lives even without her. A man who doesn't change his routine just because she appeared, who doesn't drop his goals because she sent a message, who doesn't trade his mission for romance. Even if she complains, even if she says she wants more attention, deep down she respects the man who doesn't fall apart emotionally just because her world is chaotic. And that respect is the foundation of desire. Without respect, everything collapses. A woman may feel physical attraction for a weak man at first, but she will never fully surrender to him. Because surrender requires emotional trust, and nobody trusts a man who changes direction with every breeze. That's why the most desired men are not always the most handsome, or the richest, or the most popular. They are the most consistent. The men who stay the same, calmly steady, while everyone else keeps changing. This inner predictability, not outer routine, is the strength she looks for. And there is something even deeper. A woman feels emotional pleasure in slowly discovering layers of a man that he doesn't show right away. She wants to read your silences, interpret your looks, understand the meaning behind your calm. When a man opens himself completely too fast, he steals that mystery from her. He gives the answer before she ever asks the question. And every woman, even unconsciously, wants to ask the question, wants to explore the mystery, wants to feel there is depth inside you, not dark secrets, but a rich inner world that not everyone can access. That is the key point. Rare depth is more attractive than rare beauty. A deep man doesn't live on the surface, he remains rooted in himself. He doesn't rush to prove intense emotions. He doesn't show off. He doesn't beg for validation. He simply exists, with a calm strength that makes a woman rethink everything she thought she knew about men. Without realizing it, she slowly begins adjusting to his rhythm, quieting her own inner noise just so she can hear his silence. And it's in this contrast that real connection is born, when a man's presence reorganizes the energy around him. But nobody talks about this because the world today is obsessed with anxious behavior, instant replies, clingy attention disguised as affection, and insecurity disguised as sensitivity. And women are tired of it. Tired of men who do everything for them without being asked. Tired of men who chase before she even moves. Tired of being adored by men who don't even respect themselves. The truth is harsh, but real. She doesn't want to be the automatic top priority. She wants to be a deserved priority. And here's something even deeper. A woman feels stronger attraction when she realizes you are willing to walk away at the first sign of disrespect. That boundary is magnetic. It shows you're not afraid. And a man without fear activates something powerful in the female mind, emotional self-preservation. She realizes she can't play games with you. She can't push past your limits. She can't test you the same way that makes other men fall apart. You don't break, and that makes her respect you, and respect slowly becomes desire, and desire becomes constant thoughts of you. What nobody admits is this. A woman wants to feel that you could leave, but she wants even more for you to choose to stay. Not because you need her, but because you want to. That voluntary choice is worth more than any desperate love declaration. Desperate love scares her. Calm, grounded love attracts her. At the center of everything is a simple truth. A woman desires the man she fears losing, the man she knows has options, the man who doesn't live in emotional scarcity or depend on her approval to feel alive. That man carries an energy she can sense from a distance, emotional abundance. He doesn't need her. And that's exactly why she starts to need him. She'll never say it aloud. Nobody does. But there comes a moment when she starts imagining you in situations she can't control, and that's exactly when her desire intensifies. This happens when you naturally show that you have your own universe, a life that moves with or without her. When you go out, grow, evolve, meet people, and live experiences that don't depend on her. Something switches on inside the female mind. She realizes you're not just desirable to her, but to the world. And that realization stirs something deep inside her emotions. That's why a man who lives a rich life, full of movement, purpose, and quiet presence, awakens something rare: emotional competition. She would never admit it, but she feels it. A woman wants to feel unique, but she only feels that way when she knows you have options. If you live in emotional emptiness, she feels too safe, too comfortable, too bored. But when she realizes you exist in a world where other eyes can notice you, other hands can reach you, other minds can want you, she wakes up, she sharpens, she pays attention. And that attention is the spark of desire. But here's the subtle truth. You don't need to force this. You don't need to post photos to make her jealous. You don't need to play games. Those things look desperate and fake. You just need to live, truly live. And when she sees that your life continues independently of her, something powerful begins inside her. The urge to keep up, the fear of falling behind, the need to stay aligned with you. She fears being replaceable, not because you said so, but because your energy makes it clear that you don't cling to anyone who isn't growing with you. Nobody admits this because it destroys the idealized romantic fairy tale. A woman doesn't surrender to the man who worships her. She surrenders to the man who inspires her. Inspiration comes from a lived life, not from blind devotion. Devotion suffocates her. Inspiration makes her breathe deeper. Devotion infantilizes her. Inspiration makes her grow. So the man who rises above chaos, drama, and games creates in her mind a quiet space that logic cannot fill, the space of silent admiration. And that's where desire is built. Another truth nobody says out loud: women observe everything, like a microscope. She notices how you talk to others, how you behave when you're not trying to impress her, how you react under pressure. She senses a man's inner posture, and she can tell when it's fake. You either have it or you don't. Inner posture is what keeps you calm during provocation. It's what stops you from begging for attention. It's what keeps you grounded even when the mood changes. It's what allows you to stay whole while she tries to see where your emotional armor has cracks. Because yes, every woman looks for those cracks, not to destroy you, but to understand you. She wants to know what affects you, what can knock you off balance, whether she has the power to move you. If she feels she can control you, she slowly loses interest. But if she realizes she can't control you, her fascination grows. That's the emotional paradox behind much of the dynamic between you. When she sees she can easily influence you, you stop being interesting. But when she learns she can't, you become unforgettable. And here's the raw truth. A woman doesn't want a perfect man. She wants an unbreakable man. Not aggressive, not arrogant, but strong on the inside. A man who doesn't fear silence. Who doesn't fall apart because she took 3 hours to reply. A man who doesn't measure every word out of fear of losing her. A man who knows loss is part of life and still walks forward with his head high. That kind of strength no woman ignores. And when she meets a man like that, something deep inside her shifts. She starts aligning herself to your rhythm. Her tone changes. Her gaze changes. The way she replies changes. She may test you more subtly. She may try to pull you off balance. She wants to see how deep your calm really goes. But when she realizes your calm is real, not an act, she surrenders emotionally. And that surrender is never dramatic. She won't say, "I give in." Instead, she twists inside. She thinks about you at the wrong moments. She imagines you in situations she'd rather not picture. And each thought pulls her in deeper. Because nobody admits this, female desire is born from inner conflict. From the thought, "I don't know if I have control over him. Why doesn't he react like other men? What is it about him that I can't figure out?" And this conflict isn't created by games, but by a man who lives with depth and purpose. When you're not always available, she feels like she has to earn you. And the word earn is incredibly powerful in the female emotional world. There's another hidden truth. A woman desires the man she imagines, not the man she fully sees. So when she has too much access to you, when you fully expose yourself, you remove the space where her imagination lives. And that imagination is where desire grows. But when you keep your depth, your inner world, your quiet presence, your focus, your life, she fills the empty space with fantasy. And fantasy is more powerful than anything you could do outwardly. That's why the man who lives for himself is irresistible. He doesn't try to be magnetic. His life creates the magnetism. His silence creates mystery. His consistency creates safety. His lack of desperation creates value. And all of that together awakens something unspoken in a woman. The desire to win him. And that desire is what moves the entire game. There is always a silent, almost invisible moment when a woman completely changes the way she sees you. And that moment doesn't happen when you compliment her or show affection or promise everything. It happens when she realizes you are willing to walk away. Not dramatically, not as a threat, not as a childish game, but calmly, deeply, groundedly. And she understands. This man does not fear loss. This man does not beg. This man does not depend. This man keeps going. This kind of energy, even if nobody says it aloud, is the essence of what attracts a woman most deeply. A woman is always testing whether you really are who you appear to be. She watches to see if you fall apart when she pulls away, if you chase when she stops, if you hand over your whole heart just because she showed a little interest. She watches your emotional independence. She watches your strength. She watches whether you move by her moods or by your own direction. And when she realizes that you live by your own rhythm, not hers, something inside her softens. This isn't submission, it's recognition. Recognition of your inner structure, recognition of your firmness, recognition of your value. And that recognition is what creates real desire, not the shallow desire born from compliments or appearances, but the kind that lives in her mind. The desire that makes her think of you in the shower, check her phone for no reason, look at the door hoping you'll walk through it even when she swears she doesn't care. But here's the detail nobody admits. This recognition only happens when you're not trying to be recognized. Chasing validation kills mystery. Rushing kills depth. Neediness destroys the masculine energy she seeks. Because masculine energy is, above all, structure. The ability to remain steady while everything around you shakes, shifts, hurts, or falls apart. The man who doesn't react to chaos, but walks through it, is rare, and what is rare is desired. So when you show that you don't need her, but still choose her, she feels something no compliment can create, the privilege of being chosen by a man who didn't have to choose her. A woman wants to be chosen by someone who could choose differently. This contrast awakens a subtle emotional vanity, mixed with a touch of insecurity. And that tiny insecurity, as taboo as it sounds, is the fuel of female desire. Not destructive insecurity, but that small flame that makes her wonder, is he still thinking about me? Did I do something wrong? Is he seeing someone else? It's in the space between what she knows and what she imagines that desire grows. And here's something even darker, that nobody admits. A woman is drawn to the man she fears she cannot control. Control isn't a weapon for her. It's a measurement of safety. So when she feels she has total control over you, when you reply too fast, agree too easily, adapt too quickly, she loses respect. And without respect, there is no attraction. She may like you, she may think you're nice, she may even stay with you out of convenience. But real desire won't be there, because desire is born from tension, and tension is born from boundaries. And the boundary that shakes her most is this: you can leave her talking emotionally to herself, and still not lose your balance. When she tries to provoke you, ignore you, change moods, or disappear, and you don't react like a needy boy, she is forced to see you differently. Her mind whispers, "This man is not like the others. Why?" And the moment she asks that question, she has already opened the door to fascination. Modern men fail because they are terrified of losing, afraid of seeming distant, afraid of being called cold. So they overgive. Too much presence, too much attention, too much affection, too many words, too many explanations. They think they're being loving, but really, they're erasing themselves. A woman does not desire what suffocates her. She desires what challenges her, not in a childish way, but in an existential way. A woman wants to keep up with the rhythm of a man who has a world beyond her. And here is the most Machiavellian truth of all. A woman falls in love with the man who quietly forces her to grow emotionally, not by teaching, not by correcting, but simply through his presence. When she deals with a steady, grounded man, she has to adjust her own intensity so she doesn't lose her place. She has to choose words more carefully, control impulses, and think before acting. And when a man unconsciously makes a woman elevate her emotional level, she feels something rare: admiration. And admiration is the core of desire. That's why when you don't reply instantly, not because you're playing games, but because you're actually living your life, she senses that life. And masculine life, when it doesn't revolve around her, is intoxicating. She wants to be part of your life, but she doesn't want to be your whole life. She wants to be a choice, not a dependency. Dependence feels like a cage. Choice feels like power. The man who chooses is desired. The man who begs is forgotten. There's something deeper too. A woman desires the man who is emotionally unpredictable, yet internally stable. Meaning, he doesn't behave exactly as she expects, but he never loses himself. He surprises without playing games. He pulls back without disappearing. He returns without begging. He is a walking paradox, and paradoxes are irresistible. Not because they are complicated, but because they feel alive. A woman never fully desires what she completely understands. She desires what makes her feel, and the man who makes her feel is the one who occupies space in her mind, even in silence. That's the man she searches for. That's the man she fears. That's the man she desires. There comes a moment, even for the strongest, most independent woman, when she becomes emotionally surrendered to the man who doesn't shake in front of her. And this moment isn't created by pretty words, promises, flowers, or exaggerated affection. It's born from one devastating realization. I don't control this man. She never says it out loud, but it echoes in her subconscious and rearranges everything she feels. Because the truth is, a woman doesn't want to control a man. She wants to be chosen by a man she cannot control. That changes everything. She wants to know that you could leave at any moment, but you choose to stay. And that word, choice, is the deepest pulse of female desire. If you stay because you have no options, she doesn't desire you. If you stay because you're afraid, she sees weakness. If you stay because you don't know how to live without her, she grows tired. But if you stay by choice, even though the whole world is available to you, she melts. A woman wants to be chosen, not chased, preferred, not worshipped, desired, not controlled. And here is the harsh truth most men can't accept. A woman thinks more about the man she fears losing than the man who is always available. This is instinct. This is human psychology. When you're always there, always ready, always replying, always agreeing, always trying to predict what she feels, she never misses you. And when there is no longing, desire slowly dies. But when you disappear for a while, when you go live your life, when you're not emotionally hanging on her every move, longing begins to grow. She starts asking herself, is he with someone else? Did he lose interest? Did I do something wrong? And it's inside these questions that love begins. Yes, love. Passion isn't born from total comfort. It is born from emotional friction, from mystery, from silence, from healthy doubt. And most of all, from the feeling that this man doesn't give himself away so easily. A man who gives himself too quickly loses value just as fast, not because she is cruel, but because the human brain works this way. What comes too easily rarely creates a deep emotional impact. That's why the man who stays grounded, steady, deep, and centered wins something most desperate men never do. He wins her imagination. And the imagination is where a woman desires you the most. It's where she creates versions of you, where she fantasizes, where she sees you as stronger than you are, rarer than you are, more valuable than you believe yourself to be. All because of one thing. You are not available like everyone else. And here's the most Machiavellian truth. A woman falls in love far more with the emotional impact you create than with your looks, money, or status. Those things may help, but they don't sustain attraction. What truly holds her is how you make her feel. And deep feelings only awaken when you show inner strength that she doesn't find often. Inner strength is not aggression. It's not coldness. It's not fake indifference. Inner strength is knowing who you are with or without her. It's walking with the same confidence, the same calm energy, the same security, whether she is there or not. It's knowing you don't need anyone to feel complete. And that completeness is the greatest aphrodisiac in the feminine world. No one admits it openly, but a woman feels respect and desire for the man who doesn't change himself just to please her. The man who calmly says no, who sets boundaries, who knows what he accepts and what he doesn't, who doesn't melt under emotional tests, who answers her tests with steady eyes and calm presence. She feels this in her body, in your words, in the air around you, in your energy. And that energy creates an effect nobody talks about. She starts to fear losing you. Not loudly, not dramatically, but silently, deep inside. And that quiet fear is what sustains desire. Not destructive fear, but the instinctive fear that you are too rare, too steady, too valuable to find again. When you awaken this in her, you become unforgettable. Even if the relationship ends, even if life separates you, even if years pass, you remain a reference inside her memory, because you were the one man she could not break. And here lies the final truth, the deepest one, the one most people deny. Women want to be treated with emotional strength, not fragility. They want presence, not desperation. They want boundaries, not worship. They want intensity, not dependence. They want a man who can walk away but still chooses to stay. A man who doesn't fall apart, yet still desires her deeply. A man who doesn't chase blindly, yet somehow still reaches her. A man who doesn't surrender his identity, but still knows how to connect. They want something they will never admit out loud. A man strong enough to not need them. And exactly because of that, irresistible when he chooses them. That is the hidden truth, the unspoken script behind everything. And now, you finally see what lies beneath it all.